My advice to any business that may be a challenger brand, in other words, they're not the Coca-Cola of their industry, they're challenging some other 40-ton gorilla, is to think outside that box and come up with what we call an incentive, which is a perfect wow factor that anyone can do. I mean, the point is that regardless of your product or service, if you come up with your own Happy Meal toy, there's a pretty good chance that your competitor won't be able to match that. Whereas if you price discount, your competitor can do that tomorrow.
Welcome to the Mindset Game podcast. I'm Vered Kogan and so delighted to introduce you to John Dwyer. John is a marketing enigma, a direct response customer attraction expert who thinks way outside of the box. His marketing consultancy business is called the Institute of Wow, and John's mantra is that one's marketing needs to wow prospects. He's also the guy who shocked the marketing world some years back when he convinced Jerry Seinfeld to come out of retirement. John helps business owners understand how to exploit platforms like Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, LinkedIn, and so on by implementing incentive-based marketing offers that can be targeted specifically to certain audiences. And I'm so grateful, John, to have you here today with us to speak about what you call that WOW manifesto, which is really about embodying a mindset of going that extra mile. And I think that in today's world, it is such an important mindset to adopt and to practice because people are really seeking that truth, that deeper connection, that level of care. And so thank you so much for being here with us today. I'm certain that our listeners are going to get lots of really great nuggets, including myself, that we can implement into our business and into our life. Welcome.
My pleasure, Vered. Thank you very much for that intro. Look, I've got a lot to live up to. I hope I don't let you down after that intro.
Well, it's well earned. And I even cut your bio into, didn't include all the amazing accolades and so on. And so let's go ahead and start with what is exactly that WOW manifesto and why is it important for our listeners and viewers to consider that?
Yeah, it's funny. I get asked the question quite often, why did you call the business the Institute of Wow? And I just said, look, because my mantra to anybody who owns a business is to try and look for a business name that embodies the benefits that you provide to people, like Toys R Us, you know what they do, okay? But if I was to name my business, Smith, Jones and Walker, then of course, people would say, well, what do you do? And because the Institute of Wow, it must have something to do with marketing or advertising or entertainment. And the WOW Manifesto is just all about teaching people how to create advertising or marketing campaigns that have a direct response. In other words, if you're advertising on Facebook or Instagram today, then you have a response tomorrow. And it's quite different from brand building, because brand building is when you build up a brand, like, for example, Nike or Kellogg's or Coca-Cola over many, many years, and people, of course, gravitate to that brand. The thing is, most 96% of American businesses, and likewise down under in Australia, are doing less than $1 million turnover a year. And so for the vast majority of businesses, they can't sponsor the Olympics or a gridiron team, and they've got to put food on the table tomorrow. So we teach them how to put food on the table tomorrow.
Yeah. So how do we create that wow and do it from kind of an ethical perspective, right? Truly with care in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess one of the biggest components of creating a wow factor for your business is what we call incentives. And McDonald's have been doing that for a long time. I've got 6 children. They're all growing up these days. But at one stage, we had 6 under 12. And I think McDonald's, because of the Happy Meals, got about $7 billion out of it. And like most parents or grandparents, I'm sure that I could never tell you what the Happy Meal cost. It was just about, a good technique to shut the kids up in the car. And that's what's called incentive-based marketing. They put a toy in that box to take your eyes off the price. They don't want you to look at the price. And, Amazon does that with their Prime membership these days. If you become a member of their Prime membership, they will give you free shipping and free movies and free music and all this sort of stuff. And so therefore, really my advice to any business that may be a challenger brand, in other words, they're not the Coca-Cola of their industry, they're challenging some other 40-ton gorilla, is to think outside that box and come up with what we call an incentive, which is a perfect wow factor that anyone can do. I mean, the point is that regardless of your product or service, if you come up with your own Happy Meal toy, there's a pretty good chance that your competitor won't be able to match that. Whereas if you price discount, your competitor can do that tomorrow.
And what is the psychology underneath that? Like what is it that drives human behavior to seek those incentives?
Um, the most powerful word in the English language is FREE, free. And you can shout that from the rooftops or you can whisper it and it still has the same effect. And, just as human beings, we're all after something for free. And, the world that you live in, or the world that I live in, Vered, whereby we will provide what we're doing right now, lots of hopefully valuable information for free. People tend to gravitate to something that's not going to cost them. And if you are good at what you deliver, then there's a good chance a percentage of those people will want to go further. And that's the same with products or services with a business owner. If you can get someone to taste test your product because you've given them something for free, there's a pretty good psychological chance that they will, I won't say fall in love with you or your product, but they'll certainly be, I guess, somewhat, your product will be preferable to them because they taste it. I mean, the classic is the seafood store. If a seafood store had a host or hostesses out at lunchtime and dinner time, and none of them do, handing out calamari samples, there's a good chance that a good portion of those people who would taste the calamari would go in and buy the barramundi, which is a more expensive fish, of course. But you know what? Nobody does it. Very, very few. They do in the industries that you and I are in because we're doing seminars and conferences and we're doing webinars and podcasts like this all the time. But the general everyday business person doesn't do any sampling.
So not everybody who's listening to us today has a business or is a decision maker in a business. What is important about this mindset of incentivizing or going the extra mile, seeking what is valuable to people and giving that from the heart, let's say, right, for free? Why is that important to people?
Yep, you just hit it on the head when you're saying going the extra mile. I made a mistake earlier in my career of hanging around people who said, "Oh, why?" Because I was the crazy ideas guy in my circle of business colleagues, and they, a lot of them were left brain thinkers, so they were very operational, and they would say to me, "Oh, why? Oh, why would you do that? Why would you do that?" And I had tried to convince my 6 kids. I don't know how successful I've been, but I've tried to convince them to hang around people who say, "Why not?" Where you want sort of positive energy around you, not if it's a ridiculous idea, but if it's got half a chance. I moved away from those people who kept on saying why all the time and hung around crazy people who would say why not. And because they would do exactly what you just said, they would push the envelope and they would go the extra mile. And I just always enjoy hanging around people who just simply say, "Look, why not?" And I know because we've had a discussion previously. I was involved in producing a TV show many years ago here in Australia called Dreams Can Come True. And we had all the biggest celebrities in the world help us fulfill dreams for needy people. And every time we would sit down, there's only 5 or 6 of us to put this TV program together when there should have been 36 of us, but we didn't know what we were doing, so there was only 6 of us. And whether it was Michael Jordan or Princess Di or whether it was Steven Spielberg, when we would throw the idea on the table, look, there's a letter that has come in from a little boy in a wheelchair who's a wheelchair basketballer. He's 15 years of age and his dream of all dreams was to just get a Michael Jordan autograph. Do you think we could contact Michael Jordan and take the little boy from Australia to Chicago to meet Michael Jordan? The people around us would say, "Why not?" When in fact, any sane person would go, "Are you joking?" And guess what? We'd pull it off.
Yeah. So there is this, idea that's simmering here that, one might say success in life comes from kind of that open, curious, why not type of mindset. And when we're called and it feels intuitive to go the extra mile to follow that instinct, even when there are naysayers that may say, "No, are you crazy?"
Yep.
To do that, to go that extra mile, whatever that means in the moment. So tell us a little bit more about your story, because you've lived quite an extraordinary life. You've had extraordinary impact. how has this mindset helped you personally?
It's got me into hot water a couple of times, but on a percentage basis, I think 80 to 90% of the time it's paid off. Yeah, look, my stories, I'll make it very quick because it can be boring. In my, early 20s, I set up a business called the Dynamic Ideas. And it was all about what we're talking about now, I guess, coming up with dynamic ideas in a marketing sense. And at that time, I had some big, well, when I say at that time, a few years into it, I had some big clients, the likes of Rupert Murdoch's Fox and, McDonald's and KFC and 7-Eleven. And, I got to my early 30s and we were riding pretty high. And then on one occasion, unfortunately, we were producing all the bubblegums, I guess, trading cards. And I don't think girls collect trading cards so much, but it's a boy thing. In their teenage years, they would collect the basketball cards and all that. Well, in Australia, our football is called the Rugby League. So therefore, we had the license to do that. And all the Disney movies, we'd take out the license for Lion King and so forth. And as it turned out, we were doing quite well. I think we were doing something, near $10 million turnover, which, 20 years ago was a lot of money. And I had a staff of 20 people. And as it turned out, on one occasion, I had to go over to Los Angeles and visit Disney because we were doing the licensing deal for all their posters and stickers and so forth in Australia. And whilst I was away, someone who worked for me, the general manager, made a big printing mistake and we lost 2.2 million in a week. And so he was greeting me at the airport with this good news. And I thought, oh, gosh, it just all come tumbling down. And we lost our house and all the stuff that happens when that happens to entrepreneurs. And I'll never forget, I just, on one morning, just called into church and I just said a prayer to the guy upstairs and said, look, is there any chance at all that I could just get a house back for my children? We didn't have 6 at the time. I think we had 3. And he paid me back because you wouldn't believe it. The only way to get out of this jail was to get the license for the Rugby League in Australia, which is our gridiron. And 5 minutes before the bank was going to lock the doors and close me up, after me bugging the decision maker for weeks because I knew the deadline was the end of the month, otherwise the bank was going to close me up, he rings me at 5 to 5 on the day the bank was going to close us. And he says, I've got some news for you. And I said, yes. He says, you've got because there was 5 businesses pitching for this, by the way, we were one of them. He said, you've got the license. And I went, oh my God, thank you very much. And he said, on one condition. I said, what's that? He said, you never ring me again for the rest of your life. You're the most annoying. He said, you're the most annoying person I've ever come at. And of course, when you're desperate, you become annoying. And I said to him, he's a great friend these days, Graham, his name is. And I said, Graham, look, persistence beats intelligence. And he goes, yeah, well, he said, you've got the license. And I have to say to you, not only did you get it because of the creative, sort of stuff that that you're going to put behind marketing these bubblegum cards, but also the fact is that you just wouldn't go away. And so anyway, as it turned out, when that happened, I had to pay the guy upstairs back. We got out of jail, we got our home back again, and I got back on my feet. We paid the entire $2 million back in one football season. So yeah, it was big time. Because when I got the bubblegum cards, because of my marketing background, I went to the Sunday newspapers and we handed out millions of free sample cards. Talk about sampling again. We'd handed out millions. The Murdoch newspaper would come on TV on the Thursday, Friday, Saturday night and say, buy the Sunday paper and you'll get 2 complimentary football cards. Okay, so therefore we had mass sampling, and I did a deal with all of the TV networks that were following the Rugby League, commentary, and of course they gave it away on TV. So our marketing brain kicked in. Hence why we took it from the previous year. The bubblegum company had done 2 million in sales, and we took it to 12 million in 1 year. So it was quite a stunning comeback. And once I got back on my feet, I had to keep the promise to the guy upstairs. So we went into a TV network and I said, look, I've got a TV show idea whereby we fulfill dreams for needy people. And if they don't have a house, we surprise them with a house. If they don't have a car, we surprise them with a car. If they wanted to meet Michael Jordan or Steven Spielberg, then we surprised them. And it was the best time of my life because we were Santa Claus. And the TV network took it. And I wanted to pay back. And they said to me, the TV network, look, this sounds fantastic. What is it for a show? I had no idea. I'd never made a TV show before. So I just made up a number and said, oh, $140,000 a show. And they said, good, well, you better have some big celebrities for that. Well, I didn't, but I said we did. And yeah, it became a ratings winner. I didn't do it for the money. It cost us $170,000 for the shows that we're getting paid $140,000 for. But I successfully paid back the big man upstairs. And I have to say it was one of the most joyous periods of my entire life. Yeah.
So there are different aspects, if you will, that I'm picking up on here around going the extra mile. Sometimes going the extra mile is being that recurring voice, as you did kind of with that banker, right? Really repeating what it is that we need, and really advocating for ourselves or sometimes for others. Not taking a no as a no, but rather respectfully, continuing to ask for what we need.
Yeah, exactly. And again, I forget who it was now. It might have been Jim Rowan, but one of the big, sort of speakers of some time back used a phrase, and I'm sure you've heard it lots of times, and it was, "You are the average of the 5 people you mess around with." And it's a really true phrase, because if you hang around drug addicts, there's a good chance you're going to become a drug addict, and that's just the way it is. And so I found that it was really, really beneficial to just hang around positive people. And that doesn't mean to say that, you draw a line in the sand and you don't talk to people who are not as positive as you'd like them to be. It's just that you want to spend most of your time with people who are giving and people who are, sort of never give up. I have to say that, one of my favourite phrases comes from Sir Winston Churchill, because when he was Prime Minister of England, he went back to the school that he went to when he was a child. And apparently one of the children asked him, "Mr. Prime Minister, could you tell me what your life mantra would be?" And he gave a speech which is called the Never Give Up speech. And basically he just said to this child, just never, ever, 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 ever give up. And it goes on with about 20 others. And I just have to, when any of our friends are going through a tough time, whether it be health, sort of problems, or whether it be business problems, I just quote that to them. I ask them just to go online and have a look at that speech, because it's a very, very powerful speech. Just never, ever, 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 ever give up.
Yeah. And my sense is that, on a conscious level, everybody who's listening to this knows that to be true, that especially in this busy, noisy world, we need to stand out and to not give up, if you will, right? Sometimes it requires a little bit more of that advocating that I talked about, a little bit more of the courage and taking some risks and really stand up and expressing what it is that we need. And the thing is that some people may not feel comfortable to do that. They may feel like going the extra mile is either not safe, or that they might get rejected, and it's or that people might not see them in the way that they want to be seen, right?
Yeah.
Like, let's say, then people might consider them to be pushy or something like that.
Yeah.
So what can you say to individuals, maybe even, if a client of yours, who you're proposing, let's say, an incentive type program for, says, that's outside of my comfort level, what do they need to know?
If I hate to sound repetitive, but that never give up mantra. In fact, one of my 6 children asked me recently, and I think we spoke about this before we started, and she just said something to the effect of, "Oh, Dad, would you write another book?" And because if you're on the seminar circuit and you're doing what we do in marketing, then you're expected to write a book with all of your tips and hints and so forth. And I said, "Oh, sweetheart, I'd probably write one called The 11th Hour, because there's so many times that I've been, at the crossroads, and at the 11th hour, we just pull something out of the bucket." And that story I told you with regards to the trading cards was one. It was 5 minutes to 5 o'clock on a Friday afternoon, and the bank literally was downstairs to lock the door, and we picked up. Talk about the 11th hour. And I think really I would say to anyone, whether you're in business or whether you're working for someone or whether you are a stay-at-home mum or dad, I think, at the end of the day, surround yourself, if you possibly can, with positive thinking people. And the second thing, which is so important, is just don't give up. It's amazing. Is it the story whereby the guy is digging a hole through a mountain?
Yes, Think and Grow Rich. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And, he just gives up. Well, if you do just give up, you don't know what's on the other side of that next pick and shovel, And I really do believe, though, that there's no question that you are your environment. And so no matter what you're going through at the moment, whether it be health-wise or whether it be business-wise or just personal sort of anxiety, is that try and hang around positive thinking people. And and I know that's why Anthony Robbins is in the position that he's in and is held in such high regard, is because he just exudes confidence. He just exudes, that never give up attitude. And obviously you do too.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So connect this for us, please, this concept of going that extra mile to the business world and to this marketing approach of incentive-based marketing offers, because some of the people listening are working in a business and they wish to, increase sales, or maybe they are founders or leaders of, a company like that. And so guide us through a little bit of what that entails and how that could be beneficial.
Yeah, I guess, look, if you're in a business or you're working for a business that falls into what we call the Me Too category, and that means is that your business is very similar to all of your competitors. It's Me Too. So, for example, you might be selling solar panels for people's roofs to, help with their energy bills. Then a solar panel pretty much looks like another solar panel. There's not a lot of difference in it, whereas you could argue that maybe a first-class seat in an airplane is quite different from the economy class seat. When it comes to a lot of products, they fall into what we call a Me Too category. An iPhone. So if I hold up my iPhone here, they've got an organic wow factor. I mean, no matter how many competitors come around, then they've got an organic, they don't need my help, okay? They've already got an organic wow factor inside the fact that it's an iPhone. But if you've got the same product or the same service as most of your competitors, then you do need to think outside the square, because the only way that you're going to differentiate yourself, because you don't have the big brand, is, guess what? By price. And if you price discount, the guy down the road can beat you within a heartbeat. You don't want to go down that path. And of course, you lose margin, which means it makes it difficult to put food on the table. So what we suggest to them is come up with a wow factor. Disney, by the way, call it plus ones. So I've done a lot of Disney courses in Orlando, and what happens, you spend a week at the Disney Institute and they bring out the Imagineer, and the Imagineer shows you how Disney thinks outside the squares. Unbelievable courses, by the way. I'd recommend to anyone, if you're in business, to consider looking it up. It's called the Disney Institute. And they will show you that Walt Disney, when he was running the show, he called it plus one. And no matter what you're going to give someone, just go that little bit further, plus one. So plus one. And my plus one, generally speaking, is making sure that your product or service stands out because you are going to provide them with an incentive. In other words, a plus one. And that could be, I brought up the Happy Meal toy, but Kellogg's have been doing this for about 50 years. There's a toy in the bottom of the cereal box. The local coffee shop does it, whereby you get 9 little stamps on your reward card and then you get the 10th copy for free. The irony is, Vered, is that 97% of businesses have never used an incentive, never ever used, because it's so easy to price discount.
So how do we access that creative solution, right? That different way to invite our potential clients or customers to, engage in our products or services? Like, how do we find the plus one?
Gotcha. Yeah. The best thing to do is to look at your target audience and give them something that appeals to that demographic. So, for example, I'm a baby boomer. If I was to walk into a menswear shop and buy a shirt and a pair of pants, it would be silly if they gave me a free skateboard with that. I would go, I don't think so, right? Or if they gave me a microwave oven, I go, no. So therefore, the thing is that you've got to look for an incentive that's going to be appealing to your target audience. And the skateboard would be perfect if the target audience were 15 to 30-year-olds, but not for me. And so that's the challenge. You should always look at what your audience demographics is and provide them with something. Now, that's not easy, because the thing is that whoever is in business might say, well, that's great, but the stuff that would appeal to my target audience is too expensive. I can't build that into the price. And so in our instance, we recommend to people to think of the top 3 or 4 incentives that are universally appealing across the board. And they are gas discounts, in other words, petrol discounts, okay? So much a gallon. The second one is that you would provide people with a dining voucher. And that dining voucher might be a $50 dining voucher or a $100 dining voucher. The other one is a movie ticket. So therefore, keep in mind, these are all universally appealing. Doesn't matter whether you're 20 or whether you're 80, all of these things are appealing. That's why they're easy. So the only downside of all of that is that if you give someone a $50 dining voucher, they know that you valued them at $50. If you give them a $50 dining voucher or movie pass, they know that that's valued at, the reason the Happy Meal works, or Happy Meal toy works, is because McDonald's make that toy in China for 20 cents. But for you as a parent or grandparent, it's got a $4 or $5 value. So the trick is finding something that's low cost to you, but a high perceived value. And that's not easy. I mean, we've got one ourselves whereby we give businesses the opportunity to give their customers a 3 or 4 night vacation, and it's worth $1,000, but we give it to them for less than $50. And the reason for that is that the hotels are happy to fill unsold rooms. So if you find something like that that's worth $1,000, but you're only paying $50 for it, shut the gate. It's all over, because then you're giving people a free vacation worth $1,000, but it's only cost you $50.
So, John, can you guide us through some ideas that people can implement or at least consider that could be helpful for their business?
Imagine if I said no. And then you'd have to say, well, thank you, John. We'll close. Yeah, sure. Look, I think really one of the big takeaways that I give business owners whenever I'm doing a presentation is highlighting to them that as a business owner, you need to be providing a solution to somebody's problem. Doesn't matter what it is, whether it's a weight loss program and you talk about the before and afters, or whether it be that you're a dentist, a butcher, baker, it doesn't matter. If you provide a solution to their problem and that's in your communications, then yeah, you're pretty much 90% there. So we call it problem solution marketing. And the 5 components of direct response marketing is: number 1, highlight someone's problem. Number 2, aggravate that problem. Number 3, give them the solution, which of course is to buy from you. Number 4, provide proof, which generally speaking is testimonials. People saying, look, I bought this product or service and look how it's changed my life. And then number 5, what we call CTA, which is call to action. So therefore, as long as you've got a very, very strong call to action, it really falls under the heading of problem solution. And I'll give you a great example of the incentives. We had a client who was a turf farm. In other words, he sold grass for people's front yards and backyards. And when he came on board, he said to me, oh, look, we're in a price war with lots of other turf farms. And if we're charging, $5 a yard, then they're charging $4.90 a yard for grass. And he said, it's just a price war. I said, well, you want to get out of that? He said, yeah. I said, well, tell me who your target audience is. And he said, well, landscapers, which are 99% men. And he said they will buy 5 or 10 homes worth of grass, whereas, mum and dad who own their home will just buy a front yard or a backyard. I said, okay, well, what do you think they enjoy, being blokey blokes? And he said, well, you tell me. I said, beer. Guys love beer. So we create a Happy Meal toy of a carton of beer, which a slab of beer has, 24 bottles in it. And so that's what we did. We actually sent out to all the landscapers in that particular region a direct mail piece, which had beer all over it. And of course, they got an email as well. But this particular target audience don't tend to be tech savvy. So the mail was probably the best way to go. Also text messages. And we said that for every home's worth of grass you buy within 2 weeks, then we will give you a slab of beer, which is 24 bottles of beer. And it was premium beer, all right? And so therefore, about 4 days into the promotion, he rings me up, the owner of the turf farm. He had 6 miles worth of turf to get rid of, and he had to get rid of it quickly because he had to replant for the next season. And he rings me, he said, John, we've got a problem. I went, oh, God, here we go. I said, what's the problem? He said, 4 days in, we got no more grass. We don't have any turf left. I said, what? What? He said, I'll give you an idea how impactful this was as a Happy Meal toy. He said, I had one particular landscaper who was always a pain in the backside. He would always be the guy that says, I can get it cheaper down the road, so I'd have to drop my price all the time. He rang and got 18 homes worth of grass and said to me, I don't care when the grass gets here. I need the beer by Friday. I've got a party.
That's awesome.
So that's I guess a good example of coming up with a Happy Meal toy that takes their eyes off the price, because he wasn't discounting, he was charging the normal regular price, and all it cost him was a $45 carton of premium beer, and they just came from the mountains, from the hills, and bought all of his grass.
Yeah. So again, this takes us to kind of thinking outside the box, and it starts with, as you said, kind of getting to know who is the individual or group or individuals that you're, targeting, and really getting to understand what they value and going the extra mile for them. And that, of course, as a concept can be applied to anything, even our kids, right? If we want them to adapt to some change, to do something, make their bed, whatever that is, to consider what's meaningful and important to them, and to go the extra mile, right? And it's
little did I know that when my kids were younger, I didn't realize that they had a black market at school with my bubblegum cards, and they went the extra mile. I only found this out a few years ago. My son Greg, who's now in his early 30s, he said to me, "Dad, I don't know whether you know, but when you had all of the trading cards for Beauty and the Beast and The Lion King and Little Mermaid and all that sort of stuff at school when he was like 9 or 10 or 12, he said, we made a fortune out of just using all the cards that you would leave in your office." and and I said to him, well, lucky you didn't tell me at the time because I would have been pretty angry. But now when I look back on it, I think, okay, well, I guess you went the extra mile.
There you go.
I've got to, Vera, I've got to tell you this quick one. We lived in a little country town outside of Sydney for a few years, for quite a few years. It was 2 hours north of Sydney, and it was a little country town. It wasn't Mayberry from Andy Griffith, but it was like that. And there was a hairdresser in town. Her name was Kimberly, and she'd been there forever. And one day when my wife went to visit her, she said to my wife, Gail, she said, Gail, can you ask John, is there any chance at all he can help me? Because a hairdresser has opened up across the road for the first time in 30 years. And they've got men's haircuts for $10. So we've lost all of our men because women will spend $150, $200, but men will go to the butcher if they have to. And so we've lost all of our men. And she said, men sometimes do have influence on their wives where we make money. So she said, what do we do? They've got $10 haircuts. Can you ask John, should we drop to $9 haircuts from 50 because they were charging 50 for men? And I said to Gail, look, okay, leave it with me and I'll see if we can help Kimberly out. So about a week went by and I came up with an idea and it fixed her problem straight away. All the men came back. All we did was put a sandwich board outside her hair salon, which is opposite from the new one across the road. And the sandwich board said, we fix $10 haircuts.
Ouch.
So again, it comes down to, even if the Happy Meal toy is just thinking outside the square with an Elvis found headline, sometimes that's all you need.
Yeah, very clever. Very clever. It speaks to what is the problem or issue that people have, what's keeping them up at night, what's important and relevant and valuable to them. And I think that's kind of, again, more generalized for life, because when we're able to meet somebody where they're at and really see them, and really be with how they feel about something, then we can really get to understand their point of view. Yeah. And when we truly understand their, what we might call model of the world, right? Their map of the world, how they see the world and their problem, and not necessarily try to fix it. Yeah. And I think that's the difference between like battling on price and a creative solution. We're not trying to fix the problem as much as we are to say, okay, what else, like to think about a different perspective, almost like, let's look around this corner, let's look this way, and to find, like you say, a more creative way to fulfill that wish, that they may have, which solves a problem that may not be the presented problem, right? Like the beer, right? They didn't come out, saying we want beer, but yet it resolved another problem that he needed, in that example, beer for his party. So it's almost like first pausing to get curious and not, and really ask the questions and get to know your customers.
But you see, the thing is, Vera, is that I think the match between this philosophy towards marketing and just life in general is that people are attracted to those who give. What I found throughout the roller coaster ride of being an entrepreneur is, yes, there's a model for marketing, and that model is giving, I guess, going the extra mile and giving something. But that's the mantra for life in general. And, I've always found that no matter where we sat in the wealth scale, if you continue to have that giving mindset, it just comes back. You don't do it because it comes back tenfold, but it does. It just comes back tenfold. And I have to say that throughout that particular period when we were doing the TV show Dreams Can Come True, I was just blessed with 4 or 5 other people who did that show with me. of the ultimate givers. And, no one did it for the money. We did it because we felt that there was just too much bad news on TV. And of course, this was 20 years ago. There's way, way too much bad news now. And I got sick of watching TV at night time and seeing kill, rape, maim, and destroy. And I just said to the TV network, I know you think good news doesn't sell, but I think I can prove to you that it would. And guess what? At 7:30 on a Sunday night, up against 60 Minutes, we're on another network up against the top rating show in Australia, and we beat 60 Minutes with every demographic because we made dreams come true for needy people. And it was just a joy when somebody didn't have a house, they'd lost it through a fire and wasn't insured, and then all of a sudden we invited them to jump into the car and just come for a trip. They didn't know that there were lipstick cameras all over the car capturing their reaction. And when they came to this beautiful farmhouse on acreage, and it was something out of a movie, it was just Little House on the Prairie, which is where they had previously lived, but nothing like this house. The whole community, the town had come together the week before to really, sort of dress up the gardens and mow the lawns and do everything else for them. They stepped out of that car and the host of the TV show said, "This is your new home." Yeah. And
Wow.
yeah, we loved it. I've got to tell you, at the risk of name dropping, because we had all sorts of, celebrities in it, but one little boy in not far from Sydney, the parish priest contacted us because when you're on Sunday night on TV, we had thousands of letters, of course, the next day. You could write to us, but you could only ask for a dream for someone else. You could not ask for a dream for yourself, which is the mantra of the program, thinking of other people. And this little 14-year-old boy had a skin-eating disease. And the prognosis was not good, and he couldn't go out in the sunlight and all sorts of stuff. And he wanted to be Steven Spielberg. He was a little filmmaker. And the dream that he had was just to get Steven Spielberg's autograph. Well, I thought we can push the envelope and go one, typical, go one better. So we contacted Spielberg's office and said, we'll bring the little boy anywhere in the world. Is there any chance at all that Mr. Spielberg could meet him? Because it would just be a dream come true. And Steven Spielberg was in the Amazon doing Jurassic number 2 or 3 or whatever it was, Jurassic Park. And he said, yes, I will, but you'll have to get him into the jungle because, I'm not in Hollywood at the moment. And so, again, this little group of 4, we called ourselves the Dream Team. Nothing was impossible. We just said, well, we'll make that happen. So we organised all of the airlines, and we're going to put the little boy into the Amazon jungle where they'll doing Jurassic number 2. And guess what? The office from Hollywood rang us and said, look, I'm sorry. Just when we're about to surprise the little boy at school with this dream, because we'd organised with his parents that we could get him on a plane and all that sort of stuff, Spielberg's office rang and said, look, Mr. Spielberg's really disappointed, but unfortunately the insurance won't let us bring this little boy in because of his condition. We've got mosquitoes the size of birds in the Amazon, so there's no way that little boy could come in, and the dinosaurs were the size of 5-story buildings and all that, so we couldn't do it. And Steven Spielberg said, but don't worry, I'll let the little boy meet one of my best friends. And we think, oh, well, meeting Spielberg and then one of his best friends, I mean, that's not going to be flash. Guess who his best friend was? George Lucas.
Oh.
And so this little boy went to the San Francisco Skywalker Ranch and met. So that was the wonderful thing is that whenever we were sitting around looking at all the letters, the thousands of letters that would come in, and people were asking if we could possibly reunite them with relatives that they hadn't seen for 30 years overseas, and all these incredible dreams, whenever one was just about impossible, there was a guy that worked with us called Tony, and Tony was a bit of a chain smoker at the time, and he would just take a drag of his cigarette and put it down and go, impossible? We'll need another 24 hours for that one.
What a beautiful anchor for us to really consider the possibility that nothing is impossible when we're willing to go the extra mile and go from the heart.
You got it.
Our mutual friend Joe Polish says life gives to the giver, and that is absolutely true. And whether it's giving through incentive-based marketing offers, giving what we can to heal, support, inspire, uplift. Life does tend to give to the giver.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yep.
So as we complete here, I imagine some of our viewers and listeners, like myself, might be very curious to know, how did you get Jerry Seinfeld out of retirement? Can you tell us that story?
Yeah, I'll make it quick. It was just another example of persistence beating intelligence, because when I asked Jerry, why did he say yes? Because he's got more money than God. He said, well, two reasons. I like the Aussie sense of humour. You guys are pretty cheeky and you take the mickey out of everything. So he said, that's my whole career. I take the mickey out of everything. And he said, the second reason is exactly what the rugby league football bubblegum card guy said. He said, the other reason I said yes is because I thought you'd never go away. His manager, who only passed away about 12 months ago, was George Shapiro. So if you're watching the Seinfeld TV show, which I had not really watched, to be honest with you, but at the end of it, it'll say it's a Shapiro West production. And the two managers that he had was George Shapiro, okay, and Howard West. And this George Shapiro guy was in Beverly Hills, and I would just annoy the daylights out of him until eventually, after 6 months, he said, "Oh look, I spoke to Jerry. He said he would do it." And what it was a banking client of mine here in Australia. In fact, it was a building society, but the same thing. And they were called the Greater Building Society. And what happened is that they were the classic challenger brand. They were not the Wells Fargo Bank in Australia. They were a smaller player, notwithstanding the fact that they were the 250th biggest business in Australia, but they were small compared to the Wells Fargo sort of banks, right? And so I said to them, well, you're a challenger brand. You've got to do things differently. Instead of actually marketing on price, which is home loan interest rates, why don't we actually just give people a free vacation? And so therefore, that's what we did. We came on television. I was dealing with a vacation company at the time with infomercials. So I introduced them and they gave them a good price on vacations. And we came on TV and said, get a home loan, get a free vacation. The thing went nuts. They took an extra $15 billion worth of home loans in the first few years. And this idiot who you're talking to didn't do a door deal. I charge a consultancy fee. Damn it. How stupid am I? But anyway, about 3 or 4 years in, we took it to another level. And that's when I annoyed Jerry Seinfeld. And we had done a survey to ask, who did everyone think would be a good spokesperson for the Building Society. And I'm hoping that it might have been a local sports star, which would be pretty easy to get. Well, guess his name came up, And he is harder to get to than the Pope. But because of my tenacity and just, pushing the envelope, eventually he said yes. And for 3 years, I went backwards and forwards to New York and we just produced the TV advertisements and so forth. And Jerry was standing outside a mock-up bank just doing stand-up. And of course, he killed it. We smashed it. And it was really a joy. In fact, after the first year, because I put him all over my website, of course, I remember sitting down with him having a coffee on the second year and I said, Jerry, you don't have a website, and he said, why would I need one? He said, I've looked at yours. I'm on there more than you are. So I have milked it. Yes, I have milked it.
Once again, nothing is impossible when we're willing to go the extra mile and to do it with heart, with respect, with integrity, and so on. So thank you so much, John, for being here with us today. I think there are so many gifts that you've given. Certainly, I can say for myself, and I imagine for many, many, many others. How can people learn even more about the Institute of Wow and all the great things that you do?
Oh, look, I've got so much money and so many private islands. There's no need for me to... It's funny. A few people say to me, well, why are you still working, at baby boomer age? And I said, I had 6 kids. There's no superannuation fund when you've got 6 kids, private schools, sporting clubs, clothes, and so forth. Yes, look, if anyone would love, and I'll be serious for a second, if you are in business or thinking about going into business even, then at the end of the day, you're probably going to be a good technician, whether you're a florist or butcher baker. But as I would imagine you've seen from this conversation, having the creativity to come up with a lot of these ideas is always the difficult part. It really is. And so therefore, what we've done is we put together, this is ridiculous. If you're listening to this, it won't make much difference to you. But if you're watching it, then of course, this book I'm holding up here is the size of a tabloid newspaper. And it's about 300 pages thick, and I'm going to give it to you for free. It's called The Wow Manifesto, and inside this book is about 15, 20 years of the last 15, 20 years of all of the direct response campaigns that worked. I didn't put the ones in here, Vered, that didn't work. I thought I'd keep those to myself. And it will just basically be a gigantic swipe file for you. So if you're after ideas to sell more of your products or service, or if you're setting up a business to one day sell more of your products or service, I think it might be a very handy resource. And obviously the book being this size is expensive to print. I think we pay about $420 to print this book. It's leather bound, it's got the gold tip edges and all of that, and it's a ridiculous tabloid size. So we can't send the book to you, but we'll give you the digital version, which is much more, easier for people. All you have to do is go to wowmanifesto.com/gift. as in giving you a gift. Okay, so therefore wowmanifesto.com /gift.
Wow, very cool. Thank you so much, John. And I'm excited for people who are, eager to learn more ideas, more strategies to have access to that. And I thank you for being just such a positive light in the world, for helping not only all of those individuals through that show, and of course your clients, just being that light in the world, and reminding us that everything is possible when we go that extra mile, and believe in ourselves. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Vera. It's been a real privilege to be on your show, and likewise, I've looked at the stuff that you do, and it's very inspiring. So well done.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Hey, game changers. So excited that you listened to this conversation with John Dwyer. He is just amazing in terms of, helping us to embrace that mindset of going the extra mile, whether it's with clients or anybody else in our life. It's that sense of offering, giving, without necessarily expecting anything in return. So that whatever it is that we receive, feedback, or some type of a reward, is pleasant, yet it is not why we do it. And the universe tends to reward when we really, from our hearts, go the extra mile. There is another great episode that I invite you to listen to if you haven't already. It's the one with Joe Polish, episode 217 on the power of giving. Another amazing episode. So thank you again for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe, download the Momentum Institute app, join us as part of this awesome community. And just a whole lot of gratitude for you continuing to learn and thrive. So, all my love. Bye for now.